I mean, I think one of the bigger challenges that I probably endured early on was around that streaming was just for lazy people, meaning people who are watching online are just lazy. I tend to be a optimist. I tend to not be doom and gloom. I do not lean towards the world's ending in the next 3 years, like type of personality.
Mhm.
um, not that I don't believe that will happen. I believe the trajectory might be a little longer than my human brain can kind of comprehend. And so when I hear a negative take like that, I I I've learned that there is this natural human tendency towards fear and kind of protect your own. And what I realized early on was streaming your church services can be competitive to what you're doing in the room. There is a bent there. And so I would hear early on stuff like, oh, the better your stream is, the more people won't come to church.
Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers, where we go into the back office of ministry and learn how to uplift our church members and have an impact on our communities through technology. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io. No matter the size of your church or your ministry, church tech plays a key role. Now, today we're going to go big. We're going to go to Saddleback, but I think we're going to learn some real practical things that will help anybody of any size. Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers. Our guest today is Kanda?
Kranda.
Kranda. All right. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me on. We were just discussing the difference in temperature where each other's locations are at. So I love joining people on other parts of our country.
That's the amazing thing about the technology. It shrunk our world and spreads the gospel. It's so cool.
Yep.
Um, so we have to talk to those folks that are looking at going into church tech or starting in church tech. And that sometimes can be nerve-wracking, sometimes some uncertainty.
Yeah.
So let's go back to how you got started and what was your journey like?
Yeah, I was probably surprisingly very reluctant to get into it. I wasn't somebody I think it's probably one of the reasons why doing technology in church has been easy for me is because I have always been somebody that was very like pragmatic with what I use technology wise. I'm not even though my current title at my church is innovative tech pastor, which I find a really funny title. I tend to only say yes to things that really move the mission forward. And so when I got started, I was a new, right out of college person that was on our communications team at Saddleback Church. I had come to faith at a very small church, or at least small compared to Saddleback, under 500 people. And when I interned at Saddleback, it led to a job opportunity, which I was very fortunate to have because I graduated from college around 2008-9 in the market crash. And so there wasn't a ton of opportunity at the time. And so I was just glad to get paid to work at a church. I couldn't believe somebody was willing to do that. And around that, they had something called the Internet Campus that people were streaming church services to. And I just didn't even understand the concept. And I was just so intrigued that we had a couple hundred people watching in 2009. And there was a chat, and it just started this investigation of like, how do we do this? And nobody was really managing that part of our website at the time because our church is always experimenting. And somebody had kind of, I think, gone off staff and no longer was taking care of it. And I was just like, hey, I think I literally went to my boss at the time and I said, can I just mess around with this a bit and see what this is? Because to me, we had 500 people watching this stream in 2009, and that was bigger than my previous church. And it just blew my mind that that was happening. And it just started this journey of doing more and more.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So the scope of your job, what does it all include? In some churches, the person doing the live stream is also taking care of the office computer. But what's the scope in your
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah. So I started as our online community pastor a couple years into my time at Saddleback, and I was our online pastor for, 13 years. And early on, that was just taking care of our stream every week, making sure notes were uploaded, training our volunteers that were hosting the chat, and then eventually turned into hosting our services online, which I would just bridge anything that was mentioned in person. I would make sure those online had it. Then it started to evolve into managing our new stream kind of channels, which we started streaming on Facebook in, I think, 2013. And we started streaming on YouTube when that was available. And so it just started to evolve. And one of the big things that really shifted my job early on was we started to do online groups. It wasn't just taking care of, like, traditionally I might tell a church, like, it's taking care of your worship center, just getting your services going. And then, like, you might start small groups. And then, so we had a couple hundred small groups, and my job was just to call those groups and email them every month and what's working, what's not. And then we started to evolve into having more ministry opportunities. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, we started something called extensions, which are like house churches. So if you were far away, you would host church in your home and you would use all of our stuff online. That was a huge pivot. And then about a year ago, I changed roles, and still the online community team reports to me. But I also oversee all of our tech infrastructure. So like we have an app, a website team, and all those sorts of things. So it's kind of, I kind of joke with my friends that I'm not even sure I'm a pastor anymore, because I kind of function in this very unique role of just making sure, really, I would say the innovative tech pastor, my job is just making sure, overseeing all of our practical tech that helps us do ministry. And I'm just making sure it aligns with our objectives.
Well, I think my home church may have you beat. We had a remote service on the International Space Station.
No way. Oh, that's amazing. What year
Yeah.
was that?
Oh, that would have been 6 or 7
Okay.
early on before there
What was
Facebook
the
Live.
technology to get it there? Like, what was the actual, like, platform?
They actually just had the internet up on the International Space Station and visited our church and pulled up the service.
Oh, did I read this story? I
I
vaguely
don't know.
remember reading the story of one of the astronauts watching church up there.
Yeah. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, you can go anywhere with that. That is so
Yeah, you
cool.
can.
So, growing up, I was a techie. Anything with a wire, I was excited about it,
Yeah.
right? But when you get involved in online ministry, especially with the team, it's not always roses. Sometimes it can be a challenge, and that's okay. All jobs have challenge, but what maybe is a challenge that you encountered unexpectedly and you had to navigate through it and you came out,
I mean, I think one of the bigger challenges that I probably endured early on was around that streaming was just for lazy people, meaning people who are watching online are just lazy. I tend to be a optimist. I tend to not be doom and gloom. I do not lean towards the world's ending in the next 3 years, like, type of personality. Um, not that I don't believe that will happen. I believe the trajectory might be a little longer than my human brain can kind of comprehend. And so when I hear a negative take like that, I I I've learned that there is this natural human tendency towards fear and kind of protect your own. And what I realized early on was streaming your church services can be competitive to what you're doing in the room. There is a bent there. And so I would hear early on stuff like, oh, the better your stream is, the more people won't come to church. And to me, the reason why that never made sense was I came to church early on. I came to Christ when I was 13 years old, in the midst of, my parents were kind of a mess. They had divorced, a while prior to that. My mom was going through a lot. My dad was no longer active in my life. And I found a church service because a family member invited me. And I came not because I knew who the pastor was or even that I thought it was a big church. I came because I felt God's love and there was community. And so to me, I early on, like, the community expressions of online ministry in 2008 9 were very weak. There's been community on the internet since message boards and stuff, of course, but it was more of like, a geeky type that would probably thrive in that environment, and it was a good environment, but I was like, "Are we saying this chat experience is gonna be competitive to me coming in person?" And I was like, "No." I just was excited about the connection of it that you could have. You and I from different parts of the country can be talking right now. I was like, this is amazing to me. I remember dial up, and
Mhm.
so to me, I think the biggest challenge was trying to change the narrative and get my leadership to see the opportunity. And the way I overcame that was figuring it out. And it was just one step at a time. There was a quote that I saw yesterday from the founder of Coinbase, and he said, one of the most powerful things to do when you don't know what to do is just take one step forward, just, just action. And I wouldn't say at any point in the first couple years of us doing online ministry at, let's say between 2009 to 2013, I probably had this conviction of this is what we should do. I just know that I should let's just figure it out a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, a couple steps every day, month, I turned back over a couple of years and I was like, oh, this is starting to make sense. And then our leadership really started to catch the vision. And our big breakthrough was doing online groups. When we connected our stream to online groups, our leadership saw the potential of it actually being a community. And that was a big breakthrough for us.
Yeah, it's amazing. Christ came when there was a Roman road, and that's why the gospel spread,
Yep.
right? And my late mother had a unique experience. She was trying to figure out her prescriptions, and she had to call this toll-free number. And she misdialed, got somebody else, and the Spirit of God hit her. And she says, this is not a mistake. God wants me to talk to you.
Mm.
She ministered to that person, and that person went to church and gave her life to Christ over a missed phone call.
Wow,
And that was not in the church building.
that's amazing.
So, yeah. Along that line, the other extreme, those times when, like, you say, wow, look what God is doing. He really amazes us.
Yeah, I mean, we just had this moment about a couple weeks ago. We started a new campus in Davao, Philippines, and one of the things that completely just amazes me was probably about 8 years ago or 7 years ago, we got a call that somebody was moving to a certain area in Davao, and they wanted to start a house church. And it was this crazy idea. And there's a whole nother story connected to this, but essentially they just started watching church every week in community. And I said, yeah. And I gave them some training with some other people at our staff that are really good at this. And it's just started to grow. It went from 15 people, 20 people, 30 people, and then it was like 80 people. And then I like started to go to like our campus team. I said, guys, like, I don't know what is going on here. We should do something here. And we just, we're watching, learning what was going on. And fast forward, you know, to the present, and we launched a campus out of that house church. And so
Mhm.
now one of our campuses of our church, was connected to our online experience. And I just am blown away what God does through these mediums, and again,
Mhm.
it's just that reality that, sometimes you have these plans and then God kind of laughs and he's just like, I'm going to do something else. You're not even going to expect it. And
Right.
I was sitting in our worship services listening to our campus pastor in Davao Joran talk about his conviction for the community. And I was just like, you know, I somehow played a small part in this launch. And I can't believe that thing started by volunteers through our online service. Um, I'm just wowed by the power of this medium. And again, on the flip, I do get, I get frustrated when people still don't see the potential, because I get tech is hard, it can be
Mhm.
confusing, but I'm also like, look at all this amazing stuff we can do. Look at the moment that God has dropped us into in history. It's a
Mhm.
really fun moment to live. I know it can be scary and it can be frustrating, but I'm also like, there's so many cool things and tools that we get to steward. I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that we live in this moment.
Right. Yeah, we had a church reach out to our company, And what their concerns were was those small towns where the last church is closing, and how they could use their online ministry to remotely restart a church in those small towns. So there's a great potential there. Wow. So much to talk about, but I do want you to help those smaller churches, those volunteer techs. So, Saddleback, you probably got some pretty big technology. We could probably do a whole podcast on that. But you probably do also some ministry with just the basic streaming technology everybody has access to. Like, can you talk to a small church?
Yeah, I mean, I have a big heart for this, for that type of audience. It's actually one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Online Church is Not the Answer, because I came from a smaller church and I know the difference. I know the difference of having a team of people that, I can call when our stream doesn't work, I call somebody on our team,
Hmm.
and, I have a support system and I know the difference, because of those two realities. And so I would say to a small church, one of the big things that we've really leaned heavy into in the last couple of years has been trying to simplify our streaming experience. I think there was a lot of shifts the last 10 years to diversify and having, the fancy word would be omni-channel. And I feel like we're trying to more streamline a lot of this. And so we're leaning a lot more into YouTube and just streaming YouTube and just making that available because YouTube, has apps on all the TV app platforms on your phone. If you would have asked me probably 5 or 6 years ago, I would have told you like, "Oh, we gotta be on Facebook, YouTube, we gotta be on Twitch, we gotta be on this, this, this." And now it's like we're trying to simplify a lot of this. And so we still stream to our website and we have an app, but a lot and we still actually right now stream to Facebook, but Facebook has become less relevant in the last couple of years just for various reasons, but I think you can do a lot with just a YouTube experience, a Zoom account, and a WhatsApp group and you kind of build that together. You have kind of your social experience, you have your meeting space, and then you have like your worship center on YouTube. I think you can do a lot of any size. And then the cool thing, you amplify that with a communication strategy around an Instagram account and maybe a email that you send out every week. And again, just with a couple platforms and free platforms, you can build a online ministry. So if you think about that, YouTube, Zoom, a WhatsApp group, let's say an email list on like a MailChimp or a constant contact type of platform, and then you kind of do that all together. That's actually ministry. And churches of all sizes, even a local church, a church of 50
Hmm.
people, you can do all that in a very simple way. And I believe it can be healthy and scale.
Wow. Very, very good. Very good. Thank you. So, where do you go for training? A. And B, where do you send your staff for training?
Yeah, so one of the big things I go for training myself is I'm just a big student of other churches my size. And so I think one of the amazing luxuries of this moment that we live in and the technology, you and I are using right now, it, we get to do church shopping every week ourselves. And so
Mhm.
like I have learned more from my peers than I have from probably conferences and things I go to. And I've just spent a lot of time the same way as you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, could you jump on my podcast?" I've done that to peers at other churches. And
Mhm.
I I think that's one of your biggest opportunities. Just ask a lot of questions from people. The amazing thing about followers of Jesus, at least those who are actually following Jesus,
Mhm.
is we tend to be people that love to share. We're not in a business type of strategy where like what your church doing and my church doing is competitive. We
Mhm.
actually get to like encourage each other. And so I have been extremely blessed from my friends at, some churches might say like we're competitive because we're both
Mhm.
similar size. If I just email them and ask them questions, they'll answer anything. And the same way is that I'll answer anything. And so where I've learned the most has been from other online pastors or innovative tech pastors from other churches. And I've been so grateful from the things I've learned from them and they've shared. The kingdom of God is so the leadership teams across the nation and the world, I would just say they're so open. And then I try to live that out when people ask me questions as much as possible because that's where I've learned the most. The places I go, I would say the way that I learn, I don't do a lot of conferences generally, mainly just because of scheduling and just my job. I learn the most from the books I read and the podcasts I listen to. The last conference I went to was the Rock RMS conference in Phoenix because one of the teams I oversee is our Rock team, which is a church management team, and
Mhm.
they have a really cool conference in Phoenix every year. I went to that, which is awesome. The next conference I'm going to is the Campus Pastor Summit Conference, which is, I believe, in January, and that's going to be a fun conference.
Mhm.
And usually, not surprisingly, I go to conferences for community.
Mhm.
I go because there's other friends that are going, and it's a chance to hang out. And so it's almost like it's a chance to ask questions in the lobby and in between and get dinner. And so I that's how I go to things now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done Church IT Network and
Yep. Yeah,
Philo,
that's a great one.
and the value, like you said, is the community. Just to get to know those
Yes.
people, them to laugh at the problems that you had because they had the same problem.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Church IT
And
conference is a great one.
yeah, there's so much there. So if they can afford to attend any of those, yeah, I highly recommend them. And again, you'll get something from the conference. You get some value there, but the real gold is go around, meet the people, meet
Yeah.
the other churches and the community is awesome. So what's that passion that gets you up in the morning, gets you to work?
Man, that's easy. I love solving problems. I think I realized early that I I kind of joke that because I'm a child of divorce and I'm the oldest,
Mm.
I was always the one that was the peacemaker and trying to make it all work. At least, from my perspective, trying to make it all work. And that kind of trait was kind of ingrained in me when I was 13, 12 years old. And now as an adult, I get a lot of energy solving a problem, which in technology, there's always a problem to solve. And I love that. I love putting the pieces together and I get energy from making it work. And so
Mhm.
that's definitely my life calling. And if I'm solving a big problem, I'm very excited because y- there's nothing better than that. I mean, and so I think technology is we're in a very fun moment because there's a lot of, especially in the church space, there are a lot of problems to be solved and figure out and provide clarity. And I know who you do this with ministries and churches. Like when you come alongside and they got something they need to figure out, it's so much fun figuring that out for them. And I love doing that.
Right. And it's even more fun when you can help someone else guide them to figuring it out and then
Yes.
them catching on, that fire.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Speak to that person who is debating about getting started in church tech.
Yeah. I mean, I would tell somebody that's kind of on the edge of like, should I do this? Should I get engaged? I would, I would have you take a deep look at the things you use daily in your own life and the technology that adds value. Again, not the thing that's fun and you want to show off, you know, it's about what's the technology you use daily to help you do what you need to get done. And I bet there's a lot of cool technology that maybe you don't realize is really that cool. And I would say all those things you do in your daily life, can you take some of that and apply it to your ministry setting to make you more effective? I have a principle that I talk about in my book about our goal isn't to fill a room. Our goal is to produce spiritual fruit. So a
Mhm.
lot of churches think, they go to seminary, they get trained as somebody, that's how I was trained. We think our job is to get people in the room and tell them what to do. And we do that because that's how we were trained. That's how we went to school. And I would go, our job as pastors, as church leaders, isn't to fill a room. Our job is to help them live out the principles of Jesus in their marriage, in their workplace, in their daily life while they're driving and also on Sunday morning. And I would say, can technology aid in that objective? And I would go, yes, I think technology can help. And again, think about the things you use. Think about the technologies that you use every day that are just powerful, and maybe you've forgotten how powerful they are. Can you take some of that power and use it for ministry objectives? And I think sometimes, I kind of joke that churches we tend to hate change. We're really good at preserving the truth. Our history the last 2,000 years is sometimes if you introduce too much change at once, we tend to kill you at the stake. And so like that's good for preserving the truth, but sometimes those tendencies are bad because we kind of push against change a little too much. And so I think you need to have your radar up. Not all change is good. We don't do change for the sake of change. We need to do it for the sake of helping us accomplish our objectives. But I would tell anybody, like, does that get you excited? Then you should figure it out.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your input today. This is a great podcast. For the folks that are listening, you've got a number of resources for helping others. You get a book, a website, maybe a blog or so out there. You want to tell people how they can reach out and leverage those resources?
Yeah, you can go to jkranda.com. I have a bunch of blog regularly and share videos and stuff. So there's a bunch of free stuff there. I also have a book out on Amazon and Audible. Online church is not the answer beyond just streaming to hybrid disciple making. I really wrote that out of a heart of helping churches that aren't like mine figure this out. And so it was kind of like a 15-year digest of how to think about online ministry and using technology to accomplish your objectives. I also have a ministry digital assessment resource on my website. It's just a $5 resource that you can go through with your team. And so, again, I have a big heart for churches, not my size. And so I created a bunch of stuff. They're free and paid on that website that you can check out.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We appreciate you leaving a review, liking, and sharing this podcast wherever you have joined us. I'm looking forward to next week here on Church Tech Careers as we navigate the back office of ministry and how we can have an impact on our community and uplift the members of our local church. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io.